Welcome to the latest Pinnacle Forum podcast on stewarding the influence that God has given you. This is a series of conversations with leaders who happen to be Christians. Many are fellow partners and are also currently involved in one of our forums. As leaders in our fields, we gain influence. We may think that our influence came because of our intellect, our looks, our luck, our personality, and it's for our own use. The reality is that God grants this for us to use in the advancement of His kingdom. These are the stories of people who are learning how to use that God-given influence in service to others and ultimately to God. We trust these will encourage you as you steward your own God-given influence. Now on to our discussion. My guest today is Pinnacle Forum partner Ed Delph. Ed is a reformed businessman. If you want to know a little bit more about Ed's background, I recorded a podcast previously, so you can go back and listen to that one to get some background on Ed. We're not going to use a lot of time today talking on Ed's background, but reformed businessman, preacher, scholar, world traveler, church aide and assisting, conference promoting, you name it, Ed has done it. Ed's at home today in
Phoenix, Arizona.
And I'm live from my basement studios in Anderson, South Carolina. So I'm happy to welcome Ed and hear about some of his current things that are going on. Ed just returned from a whirlwind trip to South Africa. So Ed, let's hear about that first.
I started out with a big church in Louis-Tricard, a city called Louis-Tricard, right up by Botswana. And the conference was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I don't know how many sessions I did. I couldn't tell you, 8 or 9. And it's with a church up there. I wouldn't know the numbers of it. It'd be close to 1,000. And a pastor named Andres. And we just basically were doing a series of momentum and just building. I've got this new conference that I do. It can go up to 7 sessions on momentum, the whole idea of catching momentum, getting momentum back after losing it from COVID and inefficient governments and all kinds of different, reasons for that. But in both South Africa and just before South Africa, I was in New Zealand. Both of those countries have lost significant momentum, have not recovered from where they were before COVID-19, and two very, very inefficient governments, and are reeling from the effects of that. So in any event, I was concentrated on momentum and what it means, momentum in personal life, momentum in spiritual life, momentum in corporate life, momentum in church, in your city, and in culture. Right now, I'm really concerned, especially here in the United States, as well as those other 2 countries, New Zealand and South Africa. The whole woke thing is catching on, and as that catches on, the train's slowing down. Things like that tend to impede momentum. And so what do we do about that? How do we deal with it? And so I start off with a message that we did here in Phoenix, Arizona, not too long ago in early September, called Living Tougher Than Nails, and the Culture is Tough as Nails. And we did momentum and culture, and then just moved it into all kinds of other spaces. And that's a big issue in today's world. So
what results do you expect to see from your being there? What do you hear?
Well, I'm hoping to be a momentum maker, not a momentum breaker. As someone once said, the results, it depends on where it is. If it's personal momentum, many times you can get that pretty quickly. Basically, I was trying to do some inspiration, equipping, and solving the problems there for people, and just kind of telling them how momentum works. I mean, the first thing God actually did, the first invisible force we see from God is momentum. Actually, even before He created mass and velocity, let there be light, and kaboom, that big bang happened, and 2 things happened there, mass and velocity. And so momentum has been from the very beginning. It's a spiritual principle. I believe it's the most underutilized spiritual principle in the church today and with church people. business people know about it, have experienced it, but in the whole church world, it's pretty. There's not too much knowledge or experience on that, and so what I'm hoping to see is shift, is momentum, is moving from one level to the next level. I didn't go there just for output. I went there for outcome. And that's what I try and do, is make momentum, subject like momentum, so clear that you can't help but apply them in your own personal life. It's just, in today's world, clarity is a rarity. And so what I'm trying to do is just make it so clear that it creates shift and people start actually applying some of the things that we're saying here about momentum.
So I guess momentum is something that you know when you've got it, we're on a roll. And you know when you don't have it, we are dead in the water.
Yes, just
the question is how to regain it when we're dead in the water.
Exactly. And that's by doing things that, well, number one is once people have negative momentum, they tend to focus on that momentum, negative momentum. And my idea is let's not focus on that. Let's focus on creating positive momentum from here. You've had a bad reaping, maybe you're still in the reaping time. But what we can do is start sowing to positive momentum. That means correcting mistakes that we did, getting the right people in the right places. Perhaps it's changing the way we do things or getting a different product, or let's start creating something that creates positive momentum, forward force. We see this here. You're talking to an Arizona person, Phoenix, Arizona person right here. Here last year, the Arizona Diamondbacks lost 110 games. This year, they're in the World Series. Now,
how'd that happen? How'd that momentum shift?
It's a momentum issue. And I'd like to use the example of a train in this, Chuck, and maybe out there to the people listening too. The whole thing is, I call it the love and momentum train. I mean, there's three ways that you stop momentum. If you're going to look at a train, it's the most efficient form of transportation on Earth. Of course, if you're in space, there's a little more efficiency there, but it costs a lot to get there.
Yeah.
But steel on steel is a pretty good momentum thing. And when you start creating momentum, it takes 10 units of effort to create one unit of outcome. But once you're going, it takes 1 unit of output to get 10 units of outcome. So that is a pretty profound principle in that. And so what I like to use as a train, there's three things that stop momentum. You have the gravity issue and, of course, friction. And so what stops momentum is like a train. When you start going uphill, that's going to slow down momentum. To me, uphill is doing things that are going to be, how do you say it? When you don't tell people why they're doing what they're doing and you're micromanaging and all that, that's always going to be an uphill journey, okay? Just to use one example of the different examples I use. So you have going uphill when you don't need to. Now, sometimes you have to go uphill. When I started my company, Central Bindery here in Phoenix, there was a lot of uphill stuff we initially had to do. So it took a lot of effort to get a little outcome. I bought this company, this book bindery that was down to one customer. They had 2 employees and they were in their mid-80s and should have quit a long time ago. But in any event, so I had to start this thing. I was 24 years old. I had to start this thing with not knowing really about the bindery industry. I just saw it as a business opportunity. Jumped into it. So we had to build the airplane while it was flying. And it took a lot initially to get that going. But 6 years later, I have 43 employees, the biggest bindery in Arizona, and one of the biggest in the Western United States. That bindery had a 50-year run, Central Bindery here in Phoenix. If you're in the printing industry, you'll know that. And so it takes a lot of effort. It was uphill. And whatever is worthwhile is going to be uphill all the way for a while. But once you get to that point, then it's just quick blasts of energy. So number one is going uphill. Number two is the thing that stops it is going uphill when you don't need to, just by stupid mistakes, just by inefficiency, just by the things that we do and making mistakes and so forth. That's number one. Number two is curves. Whenever you have a train, centrifugal force creates friction, more friction on those tracks, gravity pushing down on. So curves and going the wrong way and doing things that aren't really in your lane. I always say find your lane, then drive fast. A lot of times businesses get into things that aren't going to create momentum, and that can become a problem. The third thing is, once you're going, and this is the biggest thing I think with especially big companies, is that, as I said, it only takes 1 unit of energy to keep that thing going once it's going. And I think many businesses forget to make every once in a while those little deposits of energy to keep that thing going, and the train starts slowing down. And of course, they don't even know it's slowing down. And pretty soon, all of a sudden, they're in an industry that's no longer needed. They've slowed down, and now they got to spend a lot of energy again, which nobody has or nobody wants to do, into getting that going again. So those 3 things are an example of how I do that. We talk about that. We have discussions. What are curves you've taken in your business that have taken away momentum, and in some cases even created reverse momentum? We talk about all of those things. What's uphill, what's curves, and what are the blasts that we need to make every once in a while that keep momentum going. You see that especially in sales. That's why they have sales meetings and things like that, to be little blasts and so forth into that. As a pastor, I was a pastor for many, many years, pretty large church here in Phoenix, Hosanna Christian Fellowship, and then also in 2 singles ministries. And all of those had momentum, but there were things, we had to do to keep it going once we got it. To get better, actually, John Maxwell says a good leader maintains momentum. A great leader increases momentum. So, what are those things we can do to increase? And so I have all these crazy ideas of momentum that I put together and made this a series. And I'd love to do it in any church or any business. It works in both either of those stages. So that's that kind of the idea of momentum. So that's where we started with that church. And he's doing well, but he's going to do better.
Well, it seems like I might be in a position of not being able to see the forest for the trees. Those are great concepts, the uphill, the curves, the energy blasts. How capable do you think I am of seeing in Pinnacle Forum, in my own life, in the politics? How able am I to see those uphill climbs, those curves, those needs for energy blasts? Or do I need a consultant to help me with that?
Well, I think, a lot of times your own team can help you with that. And, talking and creating something within the organization, it always helps to have somebody from the outside, a solutionary. I think sometimes in corporations, others that are completely outside can see things that people on the inside can't. Believe it or not, it's just the way it is. I don't know why that is, but just sometimes a fresh approach and a fresh look can add to what you're trying to do. Many times, like when I go into a church right now, I'm more of our ministry is mainly to churches and to leaders like Pinnacles, and yours is to leaders. I'm churches and leaders, and just getting that, coming in and being a solutionary, trying to help them find that thing, asking the right questions, and seeing what's really going on. I always like to people, okay, what's the first thing I ask is, what's the thing that nobody's going to tell me in this room? What is that thing that nobody wants to mention, the elephant in the room? And many times once you start that conversation, out it comes. That's just experience. But my job is to equip you, is to help others be better at what they do. And so I'm a solutionary. I'm not a missionary, I'm a solutionary. And so I try and do those things. I try to form a personal relationship with the organization, as well as a guide by your side, a mentor or a coach relationship in doing those things. Because I want it to be a relationship. I found if you're just an expert and, all of that type of stuff, sometimes an expert is just an expert. And they were big and then spurted. Sorry about that. And then went down. And many companies are like that. I just watched a movie on BlackBerry coming home 2 days ago in the airplane in United Airlines on BlackBerry. And that's a classic movie on how to kill momentum.
How did they kill it?
How did they kill it? They killed it by actually several things killed it, but basically just kind of like in Facebook with the Facebook thing or whatever. One turned out well and the other didn't. But they had a salesman type of guy that was not a geek, didn't understand geek language, was on an ego trip and basically kept growing them despite all the warnings. And then Apple came along and put that keypad, took away the little small keypads that I used to use on my BlackBerry. And then he put it on the screen. And then their product was 2 or 3 things all at the same time, which BlackBerry was too late in doing. And basically, that's the story. So they had a kind of a competent guy as far as leadership, but he had major issues that were killing the organization, which is you see a lot.
So you were in South Africa for how long?
I was in South Africa for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And the whole time you were doing the Momentum Seminar at this one church?
No, that was just for 3 days. I next went to the 25th anniversary of Doxa Deo Network. It's a network of churches with many churches in South Africa, also all over the world. And Alan Platt, the leader of that movement, asked me to come. It was their 25th anniversary. And a book that I wrote called Church at Community was one of the 2 pivotal books that they used to start their movement 25 years ago. And it even talked about some of these principles before it was even Doxa Deo. So I've been walking with Alan here probably close to 30 years in the South African space. This was, I think it was close to my 50th time, 50 times to South Africa. And I got to go back 2 or 3 more times next year. It's just crazy what's going on there. So in the event, it has a good outcome. It's not just output without the right outcome. It's the right outcome for the output. And that always catches my attention. It's changing. The testimonies I'm getting are incredible. So I did that for them. I was with them for 4 days, basically. And at that conference, which was absolutely amazing. And then I finished up in one of Doxa Deo's annexes. They have about 20 churches in the Pretoria area alone. And so I was speaking at Doxa Deo Moet. It's called Moet. And then I was at another big church, Levendivert in Centurion, which is in the Pretoria area. Did that, spoke at that church Sunday night, and then came back on Monday. So that was my assignment for this time.
So what do you do between trips? You're home now in Phoenix. What occupies your time?
Well, number one is I speak at churches here in Phoenix. So get ready to do a few. So I've enjoyed that. I spoke like 9 times in the spring at Phoenix's here. Actually 7 times in a row in churches here in Phoenix. So I do that. We're always creating new product, creating new ideas. I write books. I have 10 books. And I'm in the process of writing 2 more. I'll end up with 12. And I think that will be the end of my run on books here. I've got lots of energy, but I'm starting to look a little old here, Chuck. So that's distressing to me.
Well, fortunately, anybody listening to this podcast won't see a picture, so they won't know how old we both are.
Okay, I like this.
Yeah, we're for the record, we're both about 40, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'll take that.
39. Yeah. So speaking in Phoenix, and this is a ministry based on contributions. You're a 501c3, I guess?
501c3, yes, have been. We started in 2000. And so we have basically pretty much your typical type of organization. With this, we have honorarium income, and that's a big chunk of what we do. We have donors, And it's actually split like about a third, a third, and a third. Here, third donors, a third honorariums, and a third books, selling books and that type of thing, selling product, marketing product, I should say. Maybe not selling's the best word, but has sold a lot of books. I mean, I've got books that are in 8 printings. People Who Overcome, Church of Communities it's in its 3rd printing here in America and 2nd in Asia. I've got, all these books in different languages. So the books kind of keep going. We're the typical kind of thing. I whatever it is, that honorarium thing, or not honorariums, but donors. We have tried all kinds of things to raise money and so forth. And it's, whatever that gift is, some people just have that gift. I don't. When people see me, they grab their wallet and start running the other way. I don't know what that is, but it's just the way God is provided for us. I'd love some more donors. It's big picture stuff. It's not like an orphanage or something like that where you can see kids. This is a building ministry, not so much a blessing ministry. I just don't go there to bless people. I go there to help them build. I'm here because they're here, that type of idea. So in any event, what we're building is marketplace leaders like yourself in Pinnacle, like us in Pinnacle, I should say, building, transforming leaders that transform culture. But what I'm doing a lot of, especially with churches, is turning churchgoers into city changers. And that is so they can understand and see that their ministry is their career and their career is their ministry. Their roots are in church, but their fruits are in the community. And I really believe that. I use the example, Chuck, of Israel. Israel is called the church in the wilderness. In Ed Savoso, I spoke for Ed for 12 years. I was at every one of his Argentine conferences. Just spoke for Lance Wallnau a couple of years ago at his Dream conference. I mean, I've been around these city guys for a long, long time. I could name a lot more, but the idea here is that I think the church is missing it in this area, that the marketplace, the people in churches, the churchgoers need to be turned into city changers. And what I mean by that is, if you look at Israel, which was called the church in the wilderness, if you think about it, where John distilled the church, the Apostle John distilled the church to its lowest components. He called it it's a nation of kings and priests. And also Peter used that distinctive, also a royal priesthood. Notice the kings were always mentioned first, kings and priests. Look at Israel, only one tribe was a priest, and they were in full-time ministry inside the walls of the temple, or we could say the church. The other 11 12ths were called kings. And those people, therefore, I believe this, if you're a Christian, you're in full-time ministry. It just depends on where you are, what you're assigned to. So the other 11 12ths of the people in a church, if you're a Christian, are in the category of kings. And kings do the kingdom. Pastors do the church. Priests do the church. Kings are full-time in the kingdom, representing and presenting Christ in that space. And so I think that we have a 12th engine here that God's created. And I also think that for 1,700 years, the church has been firing on one cylinder. And that is the priest. That's nothing against the pastors. They're all kind of victims in this, in the sense they went to seminary and were taught by teachers that you've really arrived when you're in full-time ministry in the church. And, you really arrived if you're a pastor. And somehow there's a greater status that comes on in the church setting with that. And business people feel lost in church. Part of my book, Church of Community, was based upon what two very big businessmen captured me when I was in Christchurch, New Zealand, took me out to dinner. And one of them was the head of international investments for ANZ Bank, Australia New Zealand Bank, That's a huge, huge bank.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Wayne Douglas. And then John Ross has a business called Alpha New Zealand, which they make large computer networks for big businesses in New Zealand. And they trapped me and they said, we don't feel comfortable in church. I mean, we can be an usher, we can, wow, I've really arrived. I'm now an usher,
Mm-hmm.
Half the churches want to make us clean the toilets for 6 years to see if we're faithful. They started, what is a business person? Why am I? They've been told that don't go into the community, or the city. The church is evil. The church, or not the church. The community is evil, and the church is good. So the secular, sacred things started coming in, and their point was, why, if I'm a Christian, why would I go into business? Because business is evil. They started the pastors were giving them that type of stuff in New Zealand. And so, which is typical, church type of thinking. And so what I'm trying to do is say, you know what? You're equal status, different roles. Equal status. Kings are anointed too. Priests were anointed. Priests anointed priests, but they also anointed kings. And that verse that says, equip the saints to do the work of their ministry, not your ministry, pastor, but their ministry. Pastors are there to equip marketplace people, marketplace ministers, 11/12 the church, to do the work of their ministry, which is primarily outside of the church and secondarily inside of the church. So I say it this way: you serve at church. If you're a marketplace person in the marketplace, raising kids, anything that's outside of the church walls, you're in full-time ministry, but the group you're meant to meet is the people out there. You're out where the people are. And so in any event, you serve at church, but your ministry is in the community, and you're there just like the way your pastor pastors your church. You pastor your people out there in the community, the people that are your contacts and everything. So in a way, marketplace ministers, they're kings at church, but then when they go in the community, they kind of turn into pastors out there, and they're pastoring the kings that are out there. And to the extent that they will let us, and we can bring influence and input in their lives, we represent Christ, we reveal Christ, but we also present Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things really can take Christ, redefine church, Christians, church, God, Jesus, all of that. That's their job. 11/12 the church. And the pastors were created to equip them. And when you see the Levite anointing the king, that was just a prophetic picture of Ephesians 4, equipping the saints to do the work of their ministry, not church ministry, but their ministry. Now, it's okay to serve at church. Okay, don't hear what I didn't say. You can be an usher. You can be whatever you want to be. But your real ministry is out there. And Chuck, that's why years ago I became a part of Pinnacle Forum, because I saw an organization that, in essence, was trying to do that, was trying to say, look, these guys matter too. You didn't have the language that I'm using back then. Mm-mm. But the point of it is we're here because they're here. And even with the pastors, what I try and do is train them to, how do you say it, equip marketplace ministers too, and release them into ministry in the church.
So where are you speaking next in the Phoenix area?
It looks like I'll be at a church called Souls to Christ. I'm waiting for that confirmation right now. I just sent out an email, and I'm hoping that is maybe even this weekend, but it'll be in November for sure.
Okay. So
they're sending me a date. And so I'll do that. Also, I'll probably be doing a church here in town called Destiny International, Destiny Center International, Joseph LaFew, and be doing that church. And we'll be lining up a few things as we go here. My next trip overseas is to Honolulu in January to do a nice conference over there. And then I'll be in India with Cowley Connect, doing a business organization that was created to raise up, incubate, send business people businesses into India. Only 3% of the businessmen in India are Christians.
So, of the 10 books that you've got out there, if you wanted me to read something that would grip me, teach me, and want me to read more, because you don't want to send me to the one that's not going to want me to read more. You want me to send me to the one that's going to want me to read more. Where should I start?
Wow, that's a great question, and it kind of depends what you're looking for. I have a book called Learning How to Trust. If you're trust impaired out there and you're dealing with some type of September 11th in your life, maybe you're dealing with a bankruptcy or some type of crisis, this book was created. It's my most popular book, Destiny. It's a national publisher on that. And so it's designed to move people from trust impaired to trust repaired. If you want to know about marketplace ministry, then I'd read Church at Community. And the whole idea of that book is if the community not come to church, the church has to go to the community. And that's through the kings, through the 1112 church, the kings that do the kingdom. And that's a great book. It's my doctoral dissertation. My degree is in faith and culture, how faith expresses itself in culture. And I think you'd really enjoy that book. Another book that I recommend is called Redefining Rhema. And I was with Lance doing his Dream Conference a few years ago, as I mentioned before. And Lance has all these people climbing these mountains, the business mountain or the government mountain. And I told Lance, Lance, it's one thing to climb a mountain. It's another thing to have something to say when you get to the top of the mountain. That is a solution, that is a prophetic, that like when the Queen of the South came to hear the wisdom of Solomon, he answered every question, the deepest questions of her heart, and nothing did he withhold from her. And I think that we need a lot more of that, especially in our marketplace ministers in the church. I believe we have some people that are starting to climb those mountains, and I appreciate that, and well done, everyone. But I would recommend Redefining Rhema for you, and that is basically, I have a whole chapter on Rhema in the marketplace. As most of you would know, there's two words for the word of God in the Bible. There's logos, and then there's Rhema. Rhema is mentioned 70 times, 70 times in the New Testament, and once in the Old Testament. Man shall not live on bread alone, but on every Rhema that proceeds from the mouth of God. It's important that you know what Rhema is, and I'll just give you a brief definition. It's God speaking to you presently for your present situation. For example, there's no such verse in the Bible that says, thou shalt marry Becky. Okay, that was for me. When God gave that one, that was for me. And 40 years later, we're still married. And, that was God, a faith-infused utterance from God, speaking presently to your situation, giving you guidance, wisdom. Should I sell this company? Should I buy this company? Should we go into this market? Should I marry this person? Should I move to this city? They're just regular, everyday questions, that we have in life. And we want to know God speaks to that too. He can, it's most times not an audible voice, and I'm not trying to get spooky on you now, but it will always be two things. It will be biblically correct and spiritually accurate. So it'll always be logos. It'll always be the Bible. It'll be biblically correct, but spiritually accurate for the present situation you're in, needing guidance. And I think everybody could use that.
So these three books, Learning How to Trust, Church at Community, and Redefining Rhema, where can I find those?
Well, you can get those off of our website, which is nationstrategy.com. Just the word nation and strategy put together, nationstrategy.com. You can get them from the publishers. The Learning How to Trust is Destiny Image, and also Redefining Rhema is Destiny Image Publishers. Church at Community is Strain Communications or Creation House. And you could go get those from the publisher too. You can get them on Amazon. We're on Kindle. Just look up Ed Delph or Nation Strategy, and it'll take you right to those areas. And these are all Kindle books, too, that you can get them on Kindle. And guys out there listening on Pentecost, I'd love to have you get these, because I think they'd be great resources for you. They're proven, they're tried, they're tested, they've touched the world, in many cases changed the world, and certainly certain churches' worlds. I can give you lots of examples, even here in Phoenix, that have used church and community as their template to grow, and they've grown, and there's results to this. It's not just promise them anything, give them nothing type of approach that we see so often.
So the revenue is best for you if we go to nationstrategy.com?
That would be correct. Yes, we'd appreciate it. We'll get them right out to you, and we'll go from there. I think you'll enjoy them. Just go to the product page or book page. And also, you could go to our seminar page if you wanted to see all the latest seminars we have. I'm building, there'll be 6 more up this week. The Momentum series is up there. The church, how to build a church for the community is up there. Living Tougher Than Nails, the culture message that is I'm doing right now, that's a kind of an explosive one. There's many of us out there that are worried about culture. I certainly am. This book will help your church, will equip those saints to do the work of their ministry, and will bring a aha to them. It'll bring them to the point I'm hoping for at least half, to the point where it says, I've got to do something, and I've got to do something now.
Mm-hmm. So you'll probably want to order the trilogy.
Yes.
Well, Ed, you're doing good work. You're doing necessary work. You're having an impact around the world. You are certainly using the influence that God has given you for kingdom purposes. We appreciate that. I love to tell the stories of Pinnacle Forum partners and what they're doing. And yours is especially good story. So thank you for all the work you're doing, for being a part of Pinnacle Forum. And so finally, from all of us to all of you out there listening somewhere, thank you for listening. We trust that these stories are an encouragement to you as you steward the influence God has given you, the way that Ed Delph is stewarding the influence that God has given him. And don't forget to go to nationstrategy.com. Get the trilogy, start reading them, figure out how to learn to trust again, figure out how to make your church a community, and figure out how to redefine Rhema. Thanks, Ed, for being my guest today. God bless.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chuck. An honor to be part of Pinnacle Forum.